What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex Podcast. I am your host, Chris Raymond of the Action Network, and this is our NFC South offseason fantasy preview episode. Here to help me break it down, one of the top rankers in the game, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
Up. I'm actually pumped to talk about this NFC South. We should have all four teams with different week one quarterbacks this season, which makes the projections extra fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting division. I think it's wide open. And should be some interesting spots to invest in fantasy as well. So let's jump right into it. Start with the Saints. They are the favorite. Derek Carr is going to QB 19. He signed a 4-year, $150 million deal, $100 million guaranteed. I think my concern with Carr is, looking at him going to a new offense. I know they've had Gruden in there, kind of giving him tips, and the first year he's been in a year one of an offense 4 times in his NFL career, and they've been his 4 worst years in passer rating, completion rate, yards attempt, yards per game. So there is some talent here on this offense, but I do worry a little bit about just Carr, going to get another new offense. There was a lot of I think optimism from last year that McDaniel's offense, getting Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams puts up massive numbers, and Carr still takes a step backwards. So I'm a little worried about Carr. And then you factor in that there's a lot of guys he could get benched for on his team that I'm not liking. Like, I know he's the $100 million man, so he probably won't. But still got Jameis. You got rookie Jake Haener, who's been he's been getting some hype, and you also got Taysom Hill still lingering there too. So I'm a little down on Carr, as you could tell. What about you?
Oh yeah, same here. I'm in line with his ranking. Just because, he was QB 19 in points per game last year. He's a high floor guy. He's probably more likely to finish top 20 than a lot of the guys in this range, but he has a low weekly ceiling. So that hurts him in best ball, and in redraft. So he's just kind of in no man's land down there where, he might end up being the QB 19, but he's not going to provide your team much value in any format. I think the only possible way I would use him is, stacks obviously with Olave, but maybe stacking him with Michael Thomas, because if Michael Thomas stays healthy and he has a good year, then Derek Carr probably did provide you some value at QB 19, but that's about it. Like he's in a range where he's the last quarterback I want to be taking in that range. And I thought it was funny too, because I thought, it's not a lock you can hold off Jameis Winston or the rookie or Taysom Hill, even though they are paying him a ton of money. Like, he doesn't have that strong of a job to be in the top 20. So it does seem like maybe he has a lower floor than we think. So even though I'm roughly in this range, I don't really want to be taking him.
Yeah, let's not forget. Taysom Hill played about 15% of the quarterback snaps last year. Dalton. Yeah. Dalton was a starter, and Dalton played pretty well, but in any given game, he would miss between 5 and 25% of the snaps.
How many of those snaps were in the red zone or goal line?
Quite a few, because Taysom Hill was he got double-digit opportunities in the red zone last year. Yeah. So essentially, Taysom Hill kind of was their red zone quarterback a lot of the time, and then he would come in and run the ball. It hurts Kamara as well. We'll talk about. But I think there is some hidden downside to Carr, even though he seems kind of like a boring high floor guy. As long as he's in there, I think he'll be, okay. But I don't think, like you said, I don't think the ceiling's there, and just have some. We've seen the red flags on him just moving to a new offense.
Yep.
What do you think about? Let's start with Olave. He's wide receiver 14. Obviously, he broke out in year 1, so I don't even want to say year 2 breakout, but year 2 leap candidate. Yeah. Age 23 season coming up. I'm very impressed with what he was able to do underlying metrics wise, and just watching him. He was targeted downfield most of the time. His average up the target was 15 yards, and yet his targets per route rate was 27%. So he averaged 2.4 yards per route, which is very good. 14.5 yards per catch, very good. And he only ran about 29 routes per game. They're not a very pass heavy team, so there's some upside there. I think the only thing maybe that could hold him back is Michael Thomas could come back and actually be healthy. But let's just Olave in a vacuum. What do you think of him? He's up to wide receiver 14, so the price is high. You're not getting a discount, but he's a talented dude.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to bet against him because he surprised me as a rookie. I thought he was going to be good, but not that good, especially in your run. So, like you said, he finished as the wide receiver 25 last year, but an ascending talent like that, he could take a massive leap in year two, which is scary to think because he's already really good. But I do think he benefited from, Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry missing time. They were trying to figure out what the hell to do with the receivers. They eventually stumbled upon Rashid Shaheed, who we'll talk about. But I think Olave is going to have more competition this year. Defenses know how good he is, so they're going to scheme against him. But his ADP seems fair. It's honestly probably closer to his ceiling. So the market's just being extra sharp right now. How could you not want to invest in him? But I think taking a flyer on like a Thomas or Shaheed later is probably better. So I think wide receiver 14's a little rich for me. I have him as my wide receiver 17, so not that far off. But like I said, I think this is closer to the ceiling right now.
Yeah, I don't mind it because like you said, for me, it's just the one thing I've always learned is just don't bet against these like breakouts for receivers. Like I'm not, it's just like, you might take him at 14 and he might finish 17 or 20, but I do think he has some top 10 upside, actually.
He absolutely does.
Yeah. So I'm fine with him there. I think the more interesting thing is Michael Thomas. He's 30 now. He only played three. It doesn't seem like 5 years ago that he even played 3 games last year. But he was actually a top 10 receiver in those 3 games. He caught 3 touchdowns and 16 passes for 171 yards in the 3 games he played on 22 targets. I don't know. Like, how do you factor in these injuries? It's just like I don't know what it is with him. Just like chronic almost, it feels.
Yeah, that's the problem is we don't really know how good he is right now. He's still been good when he's been in there, but he's only played 10 games the past 3 seasons. So he could be declining. He could still be an elite receiver. We don't know. So honestly, this is just betting on him staying healthy, which I have no reason to believe that, he's going to miss 10 plus games again this year. So this is obviously a player we're going to have to monitor very closely, the coming months to see what's up with his toe and whatever else is injured. So if he stays healthy, he's going to crush this ADP. So I think he is absolutely worth some flyers in this range. And like I said, stacking him with Derek Carr specifically makes a ton of sense because, them both having good seasons is highly correlated. So yeah, I'm interested in him at wide receiver 48, but you can't go nuts because again, not be shocked if he misses 10 plus games this year. So he's kind of, just kind of a crapshoot in this range.
Yeah, another guy I think I'd prefer in redraft just because of the missed game potential.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, at 48, I don't mind it. I don't think he'll be. I think he'll still be the number 2. I think Olave is just too good at this point.
Right.
But he still has double-digit touchdown upside, even though he's actually never. His career high is 9. But I do think 17-game season. I do think he has double-digit touchdown upside. We saw him 3-3 games last year. Has the big body, but 48 is fine. Where he's going, but I am always a little skeptical of like older, big body receivers. So I'm not going to go crazy either. Shaheed is going at wide receiver 67. Another guy who could take a step forward this year. A little older though, age 25 year this year, and but he was targeted about 18% of his routes, 2.6 yards per route because he had a lot of big plays. The ADOT was actually lower than Olave, so about 11.5 yards on average downfield he was targeted. But what do you think of Shaheed?
Yeah, I love Shaheed here. He was a bit of an unknown heading into his rookie season last year at Weber State. He was forced into action just due to so many injuries, and he flashed. Like whenever he was in there, he was producing. So he just kind of made himself a starter. And weeks 12 through 17 was when he ran a route over 70% of the time in every game, and he was wide receiver 38 over that stretch. Again, he was still kind of adjusting in the NFL. They were trying to figure out how to use him. And they've said in the offseason they want to move him around the formation, expand his route tree. So there's potential for him to be, a wide receiver 3 in this offense. But, with Michael Thomas back, that could certainly hurt. So I think with Shaheed, the upside is, Michael Thomas potentially missing time and becoming the number 2 target in this offense. So I think he goes in the range where you definitely want to take flyers on a guy that has this much upside. And he should be playing, in week 1. Like he should be in the starting lineup. So I think he might offer a higher floor than people realize. So I love getting Shaheed, the late 60s at wide receiver.
Yeah, especially in best ball, because if
Oh
Thomas
yeah,
does stay healthy, it's going to be tough to be consistent for Shaheed. But
yeah,
the talent is there, and the big play potential is there. And Thomas hasn't stayed healthy, so you might get a top two receiver
exactly.
for a bunch of games for this team. A.T. Perry was a rookie 6th rounder. He's going at wide receiver 113, so there's some love for him. And then Juwan Johnson's a tight end 15. He re-upped for 2 years, 12 mils. So he's got about 11 and a half of that guaranteed. So they obviously like him. He looked like a clear-cut tight end one, I think, did Johnson with Adam Troutman gone. Troutman played 57% of the snaps last year, but then they signed Foster Moreau for 8 mil guaranteed. So they signed Johnson for about 12 mil guaranteed. And then they got Moreau for 8 mil guaranteed. That maybe is a little red flag on Shaheed. Maybe they're going to continue to go two tight end sets. But I think Johnson is interesting. What do you think of him? Obviously some regression there at the touchdowns, but do you think he can kind of take that next step and be a little bit more consistent this year?
That's a tough one because, at tight end 16, he kind of has to either repeat or kind of like outproduce last season. So he was tight end 16 in points per game last year. That's if you don't count Taysom Hill as a tight end. We could talk about that later. But Taysom Hill is like tight end 6 or something. But that was with Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry missing a lot of this season. So just Michael Thomas returning and being healthy could ding Juwan quite a bit. And Foster Moreau, like you mentioned, like he could eat into his workload. Taysom Hill, obviously, is going to eat into his workload. So I'm in line with his ADP a bit here, but I'd much rather target a Greg Dulcich or Dalton Kincaid in this range. I just think they have a higher floor ceiling combo. And with Johnson, he's not a lock. So he could have a lower floor than people realize. So I'm passing up on Juwan at tight end 16.
Yeah, I think the Moreau signing really worries me because remember, Carr also has the chemistry.
Oh, true. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, no kidding.
So like Moreau there, I mean, 8 mil I know it's still 3.5 mil more guaranteed for Johnson, but that just Moreau could play the most snaps of any tight end on this team. Like so, and the fact that you still have Taysom Hill working, probably going to get 10%, 15% of the routes at tight end. He's going. If you use his ADP, like whether it's quarterback or tight end, his ADP is around 35th at the position. No, at either.
Is he eligible at tight end anywhere still?
I believe so. I mean, he was the tight end last year. Probably should be able to put running back, but
yeah,
I believe he is in some leagues. But I think he's a little undervalued. Obviously, gets outlying touchdown production, but he also gets outlying red zone usage. So. He's always kind of interesting, especially in deeper leagues. But speaking of the running backs, Kamara, RB 31, and then Jamal Williams signed a 3-year deal with about just over 8 million guaranteed. And then they drafted Kendre Miller in the 3rd round out of TCU, guy with some good vision, patience. Not the fastest, most explosive guy, but good kind of all around runner. What do you think of this backfield with Kamara obviously facing a potential suspension?
Yeah, well, it's a mess, but let's try to sort through it because Kamara's RB 31. Clearly, the market is factoring in the potential of a suspension.
Finally,
finally. Like, what was up with Alexander Madison being here? Yeah. Anyways, it does. Last year he was able to escape it. We kind of knew that by this time last year. But it does seem more likely that he will face some sort of suspension. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like the sharp money from people with like legal expertise and are more keen on these things think he will get like a 4 to 8 week suspension. So for my projections, I'm just saying around 6 weeks he'll probably miss. And with Kamara, you're not just getting a top 5 back when he does return potentially. He was RB 17 in points per game last season. I mean, he's been declining as a talent. And like you said, Taysom Hill does siphon away a lot of those red zone goal line touches that you kind of need Kamara to get to be a top 10 running back. So it's really tough to get behind him at 31 if you do think he'll miss around 6 games. So that's a range where if he's going to get 9 to 12 games of RB2 value, let's say, and 48 games of no value, it's probably break even if we're being honest, and at that range. So I think Jamal Williams, he's going right around there. He can get you 48 games of RB2 value and potentially, 9 to 12 games of RB3 flex value. So I think I'd rather go with Jamal Williams there. He just probably has more upside. But I think the ADP for both these guys is about fair. Like if I were to crunch all the numbers with the potential suspension, like low 30s for both of these guys actually does make a ton of sense.
Yeah, yeah. Kamara, like I think you kind of hit on it with the Taysom thing. It's worrisome because Kamara's first 5 years in the league, he averaged 21 carries and 5 targets inside the 10-yard line. Last year, just 8 carries and 1 target inside the 10-yard line. And then you signed the guy who led the NFL in carries inside the 10. Jamal Williams. So a lot more downside. I think Kamara's best years have passed him by. There's a chance he gets like a lot, even if he's like gets RB2 usage, fantasy RB2 usage. I don't know if the touchdowns will be there because he's not as explosive to where he's, getting these longer touchdowns. So yeah, I don't really have much. The price is probably fair, but I still think a little more downside than up there. Williams, yeah, I think last year was a better time to invest in him.
No kidding.
yeah, but I don't hate it here, but probably where he needs to be. And then Miller going at 46. I mean, what do you think of his prospects? Third rounder out of TCU.
Yeah, no, I do like him. I think that was a good landing spot, and he's a talented third rounder out of TCU. He's more than capable of being a true 3-down workhorse back, and he's a bigger back. He can go anywhere between 215, 220 pounds, so he could handle goal line duties if needed. But they already have Taysom Hill and Jamal there, and Kamara when he's playing. So I don't see the upside. He has a clearer path to value than other number 3 running backs. So, the RB45 range, this is another example. I think the market is dead on. I think that makes a ton of sense. That's where he should go, because likely Kamara misses the first 6 games or so, and he's the backup, and he's a Jamal injury way of potentially being an RB2. So I think that's baked into the price here. Now, it will be interesting once we do have some clarity on Kamara to see how these kind of shuffle out. I think that might be the time to invest once we have more clarity, because I think right now, based on the uncertainty, all these guys are priced like exactly where they should be.
Yeah, maybe even a little over because Kamara's RB31, but like it's going to be tough for 3 of them to finish top 45. So Kamara's probably the one that I worry about the most.
They're going to be providing value at different times.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it makes sense because, and it depends on the format. Like Kamara makes more sense in like a redraft league because you can get by without him for the first 6 games, let's say, where it's easier to replace a guy. But yeah, I just think in best ball, all these guys will probably provide value, like enough value to hit these ranges. It's just a shit show. There's such a wide range of outcomes where it's up to you to kind of base your risk tolerance and build teams accordingly. But I think they're fairly priced at the moment.
Yeah, like I think Miller's a guy. If you fade Kamara and Williams, Miller's a guy you definitely want because, like, let's say Kamara misses the first 6 games. If Miller has a really good first 6 games, I hope then now are you in a 3-way committee? So I think there's downside with Williams, there's downside with Kamara. Miller, there's upside. Now he's being fairly priced for that upside, but yeah, I think that's kind of the play. I think you're either betting on Kamara and Williams or you're betting on Miller. I think that's how you kind of want to look at it.
Yeah, I think just the cheapest guy with all this uncertainty, the cheapest guy is probably the way to go. That's kind of how we handle 49ers backfields in the past. Not this year, but in the past.
All right. Who do you like for undervalued sweepers on the Saints?
I got to go with Rashid Shaheed just because he does offer a ton of upside where he's going like close to wide receiver 70. And that's where you kind of cash in if Michael Thomas is unable to get through a full season. So I think where Shaheed is going, I think he makes the most sense.
For me, it's I think Thomas is a little bit undervalued, but obviously I think that's more redraft just because the missed game possibility. But Taysom Hill also, I think Taysom is going to continue to have that role. So if you can get him tight end eligible, I think smashes his, tight end 34 ADP. So yeah, Taysom Hill for me. What about overvalued guys, busts?
I got to go Juwan Johnson just because he's being drafted closer to his ceiling. Like last year was probably his ceiling, and that's exactly where he's being drafted. Now he has Foster Moreau there. You pointed out the connection with Derek Carr. I didn't even think of that. So Moreau could eat in his usage. Obviously, Taysom Hill and the goal line packages will eat into Johnson's touchdown upside. So I think last year was the time to buy in on him, but this year at tight end 16, I'm out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Johnson's overvalued. I think the Moreau signing was big. That just kind of changed a lot. I think Carr. I don't like the red flags I see with him. And Kamara, same thing. I think Kamara could come back and still not be super valuable. Even with 15 plus touches a game. So it's a lot of potential for downside here. A wide range of outcomes though for the Saints. I know there will be kind of the market will be kind of all over the place with them, but let's go to the Falcons. This is a team I really like. Obviously, the weakest part of their team is the quarterback position. You got Ritter going at 31 and Heineke going at 44. What are your thoughts on kind of going forward with these two at QB?
Yeah, well, it looks like, or it sounds like Ritter's a lock to be the week one starter unless something weird happens. So I bet he does have a fairly long leash. Heineke's not good enough for them to be too tempted to go the other way. So that I think they definitely want to see what Ritter has. And it's going to be a very run-heavy offense again. But, Ritter has two of the best young pass-catching talents, and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and, generational talent at running back in Bijan Robinson, who's also a good pass catcher. So combining that with Ritter's sneaky rushing ability, it could be similar to what we saw from Marcus Mariota earlier last season. I know we were talking about him quite a bit in DFS and being a high upside QB2. So Ritter is absolutely worth a flyer at QB 31. We can't project him to start, 14 or more games, let's say, but he just offers too much upside. And I think a safer floor than people think at QB 31. So I do like Ritter there. I don't really like Tyler Heineke where he's going. I think Ritter is definitely kind of in the range where I want to take him.
Yeah, I like the rushing upside. It's not as much as a true scrambling quarterback, but he did scramble 8% of the time last year, which is the league average about 4 to 5%. He averaged 16 rushing yards per game. I think there is some intriguing kind of QB2 upside there, just enough rushing upside and just such a good receiving core, and the O-line should be pretty good as well. It's really just how much can he do, but they've definitely surrounded. He could be like a Tannehill, Titans type of, we have Arthur Smith here. Arthur Smith has always been good at kind of maximizing the talent, even if it's a run heavy offense. So yeah, I like Ritter. You mentioned the pass catchers, Drake London going wide receiver 25. He was targeted 27% of his routes. That's very good. 2.1 yards per route. So he didn't really suffer as much as a guy like Kyle Pitts did in that offense. What do you think of him?
Well, obviously I love Drake London. I still believe in my comp of he's a blend of Keenan Allen and Mike Evans. I really do believe it. But, he is on a run heavy offense, which does hurt his ceiling, but he was so involved last year. He ranked 14th in percentage of the team's air yards. He saw a target on 27% of his routes. So while they are going to be run heavy, even more so with Bijan Robinson, I'm guessing, he should see enough volume to overcome that. And he's younger, he's only going to be 22 this season. Yep. So a year or two leap is certainly in the cards. And if he breaks out, if Kyle Pitts breaks out, maybe they do throw a little bit more. So I do like him in this range. I think he definitely warrants it just based on talent alone, but I wouldn't go too much higher. I wouldn't take him inside the top 23. So I think his ADP is fair, but you absolutely want to invest in some Drake London, just get, some of this talent heading into year two. And he was wide receiver 22 in the final 4 games with Ritter under center. They look like they had really good chemistry. So that was encouraging to see. So, full offseason should help there. I will say there was no Kyle Pitts for those games, but either way, just seeing that he had more chemistry with Ritter, I think the Mariota is a positive heading into this year.
Yeah, another guy. Yeah, I just want to invest in because I think he takes a year to leap. Even with the volume on the offense, even with Pitts back, I think he's going to be productive for the Falcons. Matt Collins is there. He's going as the wide receiver 98. Don't think he's going to be a massive factor. They probably want him to block and stuff. But what do you think of Pitts? He's going tight end 6 or 7, depending on your league. Only 52% of his targets were catchable last year. So, that was down from 66% in 2021. Now, I don't think, Ritter is going to get back to that Matt Ryan level, but could be, there is room to grow when only half of your targets are catchable.
Yeah, no. Well, to be fair, I mean, he has a pretty high ADOT. It was around 14, right? So you're going to see fewer catchable balls. But either way, he's been held back by, quarterback play, the scheme. There was that weeks 3 and 4 last year. He only ran around 65% of the time. I think Arthur Smith wanted him blocking more. So he's had to overcome a lot of things. But he's still a generational talent. He's still only going to be, 22 years old this year?
23. Yeah.
So he's turning 23 this year. Okay. Yeah, I mean, still a guy you want to invest in. I think tight end 6 is fair. The question is, do you want him or Darren Waller? And I'm going Kyle Pitts over Darren Waller.
Yeah.
So I think tight end 6 makes sense. He still has a ton of upside. This offense does limit him, but I think he's still a player I want to be investing in.
Yeah, because we're already kind of factoring in, what happened last year. We're already factoring in that they're going to be run heavy, So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of upside for a guy that put up 1,000 yards as a tight end at age 21. Still hasn't realized his touchdown potential. The guy's 6'6" and 250, and he has 3 touchdowns in his career. You could look at that as a red flag too, but I look at it as more of kind of a issue with the quarterbacks, which isn't resolved necessarily.
Yeah.
But there's just room to grow, and tight end gets pretty ugly fast. And, I'll take the 23-year-old Pitts over the 30-year-old, 31-year-old.
31-year-old. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so Bijan is going RB3, first rounder, 8th overall out of Texas. Good at pretty much everything. Explosive, elusive, fast, good pass catcher, good blocker, good size. I mean, what are you thinking here? Top 5 pick on this guy, even though we've never seen him play it down?
Absolutely, and he landed in such a great spot. He's a generational talent. Lands in a run-heavy offense with a great offensive line. You already mentioned that, but that's huge here. So he's fully capable and will be the workhorse back on day 1. He's a good pass-catching back. So it was good to see Ritter. He was much more willing to check down his running backs in his 4 starts than Mariota. So a lot of the running back, pass-catching stats didn't look great last year, but that was due to Mariota. So I think he could see, 3 to 4 catches every game. And Tyler Algier, he's getting eaten his touches some, but there's so much volume to go around. I don't think it matters. And if Algier goes down, I mean, we could see Bijan getting 25 plus carries a game. So Bijan has number 1 overall upside and a very high floor. So I was saying, running back 3 was a bit steep earlier. I think right now I would still take Barkley over him, but that's it. So I think Bijan would be my RB4. So this is just an instance of, there's hype around him. He's a sexy pick, but I think the ADP is about right. He should be going super high, even though we haven't seen him yet. He just has so much upside. And running backs, they can just hit right away. So I would say taking him RB4 makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I still take Henry over him, but I don't.
Oh
mind
yeah,
I
forgot to.
I do like the big man, but love Bijan as a talent. I think
if we were drafting right now for 2024, not just dynasty, but 2024 redraft, I would take him number 1 overall.
Oh, that's for next year. Yeah, right.
Yeah, for next year. If we were drafting for 20, I would take him number 1 overall. Right now, though, I think RB4 is fair.
Right. I like Algier at RB40. I just think this team is, first of all, I think Bijan's going to be used as a pass catcher as well. I think he's going to split out in the slot some. They love this positionless football. And remember, because this is such a run heavy team, I think there will be enough carries for Algier to hit double digit touches in a lot of weeks. And obviously, if Bijan goes down, you got big upside there. So I actually like the price for Algier. Atlanta was second in the league with just under 27 backfield carries per game. So yeah,
I think RB40 is right about that range where you kind of need the running back to go down to get value. Like if he can carve out RB3 flex value, that's got what you're asking yourself, and other running backs in this range. And I think just given the massive volume, it's likely. But I think in this range, I still rather have like Rashad Penny or Devon A-Chain. We'll see what happens with Dalvin Cook. But I think there's no doubt that Algier is not going to be able to leapfrog Bijan. That's the only downside with him. But I agree. I think in the RB40 range, he does make sense just because you can make a case where he's producing RB3 flex value with Bijan healthy, especially if you think Bijan's going to line up in the slot or something. Like they can still use Algier heavily, even with Bijan there. So I do like him in this range, but I'd still rather take like a Penny or A-Chain, and that's about it in this range.
Yeah, for me it depends. Like Penny, in redraft, sure, but in best ball, the missed games I worry about. And then A-Chain, I mean, he could start the year as like the RB3 or even RB4 if they sign Cook.
He could be the number 1 or the number 3. I'm just saying the range of outcomes where Algier, we kind of have a really good idea what he's going to be. Yeah,
we kind of know his floor. So I do like him, and I honestly, Cordero Patterson's going to RB65. I actually like him too there because I think he's going to still get carries. I think he's still going to get his return. So that's a couple extra cracks at touchdowns. But I also think he's going to play a lot more wide receiver this year. So kind of an intriguing mix going for a guy that's essentially going to be free. So I do think he beats this ADP as long as he's healthy at 65.
Yeah, I agree. Like
I just want all the Falcons backs. Yeah, the Falcons running backs.
Essentially, that's what it comes down to because he is way too cheap, and they're going to carve out a role for him to produce. With Bijan there, so they've already kind of committed to that, and he's the kind of player he doesn't need that many touches to out hit this. And then again, if any one of these running backs goes down, the other two benefit. So there is built-in upside as well that I don't think the market's really factoring in right now.
No, I have a lot of Patterson on best ball. It's like my last running back, RB6. All right, who do we like? Recap for Falcons, undervalued guys, sleepers.
I think Desmond Ridder, just because you kind of get like the Drake London, Kyle Pitts breakout, Bijan being a good pass catching back. Ridder playing 15 games is probably more likely than people think. So I think, and his rushing upside. So I think RB31 is a great time to get a guy like Ridder. QB 31.
Yeah, I like Ridder, like Algier, like Patterson. I think all those guys are undervalued. What about overvalued guys or busts?
No one. I think everybody is either appropriately priced or undervalued. So I can't make a case for anybody being overpriced on the Falcons.
Yeah, same here. I mean, you mentioned Heineke, but he's going 44 at quarterback. I don't think that's really it's
knock yourself out. If you want to take him there, knock yourself out. But
all right, let's go to the Carolina Panthers. They got Bryce Young at quarterback, the rookie. They also got Andy Dalton there. Frank Reich is the head coach now. The offensive coordinator is Thomas Brown, who is over there with Sean McVay. He said he wants kind of a 50-50 split between Reich's old offenses and his Rams offense. So I guess just your thoughts on kind of the big overall regime change in Carolina.
Yeah, it's hard to be overly confident, how the offense will look in 2023, especially with the rookie QB under center. If they're going to have a mixed scheme, it's not impacting my projections too much. But Young, I think he'll start right away. They're going to have the camp battle with Andy Dalton. I think they've already kind of hinted that Young's the QB1. So I think he's close to a lock to start week 1. We'll see what happens. But he's similar to Kyler Murray in that he's small. He's athletic, but he's more of a polished passer than Kyler, and he doesn't lean on his legs as much. So I don't know if he has. Again, he doesn't have the same upside as Anthony Richardson, but I do think he has more upside than C.J. Stroud. So I think QB 24, he might offer some value there if you can get him there. He doesn't have like the greatest pass catching unit, but I think he'd get by with guys like Chark. I like Mingo. We'll talk about him later. Hayden Hurst is okay. So I think he has enough to get by, and I think he'll lean on his legs probably more than he wants year 1 to kind of overcome everything. So I think at QB 24, I can get behind Young. Whereas Stroud, I couldn't get behind his ADP in this range.
Yeah. I think I was always like a team Young. I know some people felt Stroud should have gone earlier, and some people thought that maybe the Panthers weren't going to pick a small guy like Young, but I mean Young's clearly the best quarterback in a class in terms of quarterback skills. Now, could Richardson be a better fantasy asset? Absolutely, but in just terms of pure quarterbacking skills, I think it's Bryce Young. But Andy Dalton is there if he falters. So I mean, there is some downside if he doesn't get off to a great start or whatever not. But overall, I think he's priced fairly. Dalton, I would like if it was like a not as good backup as Andy Dalton here,
right?
But it is what it is. Adam Thielen, I mean, he got 3 years, 25 mil, 14 guaranteed it, but this is going to be his age 33 season. Posted career lows in yards per catch at 10.2, yards per route at 1.06, yards after the catch at 2.3, a 21% contested catch rate was a career low. Just 1.4% of his, or 0.14. Well, let me say it again. 0.014 or 1.4% of his receptions he had a missed tackle forced on, which is a career low in his PFF grade, career low in his run blocking. So this guy, I mean, there's a lot of red flags, which is why I say, like, we talked about this in the other pod. He's going wide receiver 55. A guy like Robert Woods, who's younger and it wasn't declining quite as hard as going, 30 spots later at receiver. So I find it tough to get behind Thielen, but I mean, I get the other side of it. There's like he's 14 mil guaranteed. He's gonna be the number one wide receiver on day one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think he's like washed quite yet. I watched some of the film last year, and he was more open than people realize. Cousins just opted to target Justin Jefferson instead, and can you blame him? So I think he could be Bryce Young's number one target to start the season anyway. So he seems like a safer high floor type of guy in this range. But I'm more interested in going for upside outside of the top 50, and you kind of hit this home in our Texans preview as you get Robert Woods 30 slots later, and I kind of see them as similar.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how you kind of take advantage of that, as opposed to like overdrafting Adam Thielen a bit. But I do think he'll help Bryce Young out of the gate. He's just not a guy that I want to be targeting in best ball or redraft, because this is the range you kind of want to go for, like a guy that has upside to be a potential wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. I don't think Thielen has that anymore.
And, you look at, the numbers declined last year, and you say, okay, well, watching the film, he did get open some. It wasn't as bad as it looked, but that was as, the number 3 really at times target in that offense. Because once they got Hawkinson, Hawkinson was kind of number 2. So like if the defense is treating him as a number 1, I just think that could end poorly for him, this year. Chark is going at wide receiver 65, about 10 spots lower than Thielen. He got $5 million guaranteed on a 1-year deal. He's 27, so he should be in his prime. I think it's a non-zero chance Chark could emerge as like the leading receiver for this team. Now, like, he's been very erratic, but like not quite as erratic as it seems. He's between 1.4 and 1.7 yards per route the last 4 years, and 29% of his targets were deep, were 20 yards downfield or more last year, according to PFFs, and he was in the top 20th percentile in terms of deep yards per route. So he has like some boom potential. Like, as a best ball guy, I actually don't mind him. I think he does have some kind of boom potential, but it's the consistency. I still don't think it's going to be there. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, so he bounced around a bit. I think he's been on 3 teams now, or 4 maybe. I think this is his 3rd, but he's still only going to be 27 years old, so he's still in his prime. Have to remember that he's still, a deep threat who has a ton of upside. So he's worth a flyer in best ball in this range, just due to the wide receiver room being fairly wide open and being a deep threat. So I think stacking him with Bryce Young makes a ton of sense. I think that's how he's going to unlock Young's upside. So I think, in the 64, I don't know if he'll be the number 1 target. Maybe like lead the team in receiving yards.
Yeah, he could. Yeah,
but exactly. But not maybe in reception. So that's just his style. So he's perfect for best ball in this range. So I think Chark and Mingo are the 2 guys in this wide receiver room I'm targeting.
Yeah, and Mingo, of course, is second rounder out of Ole Miss, 225 pounds plus, going at 72, 4.46 40-yard dash. It does a little struggle with route running at times,
Mhm.
but does have some good yak ability. So I think he's in the mix, and he's probably battling Terrace Marshall, who is kind of a holdover, but they're going to give him a shot. But he's not going to cost them much if they want to completely move on from him. So he's going wide receiver 86. I'd rather just bet on the rookie in Mingo there, and then
Yeah.
LaVisca's going at 102. I mean, he's going to be a gadget guy, so he probably doesn't hit that ADP unless he has I mean, Wright did mention like Chenault could do Debo Samuel like things. I mean, maybe there's an outside shot that like the starters are Chark, Thielen, and Chenault. So maybe I'd probably worry about Marshall more than Chenault because Chenault, is going so late, but he can also be released with no real consequences. So it's kind of just something to monitor, I guess, in camp.
Yeah, but out of those guys, I do like Mingo. Like, I think he's the best value. I liked him heading into the draft, and I love this landing spot because there is a chance he could be the number 1 target. He could be the number 4 target for all we know, but he has a shot. And not many rookies this season specifically landed in a situation like that. Like some of the top guys are like the number 3 target off the bat. But Mingo, he's built like a running back, and he has that great yak ability. He can also win downfield. So my comps for him are in between LaVisca Chenault, ironically, and Debo Samuel. So I don't think he has Debo's upside, but like he's that type of guy, right? So I think he's in direct competition with LaVisca Chenault. So, I mean, maybe Terrace Marshall has a safer spot than we think, but I do love his upside at wide receiver 70 just because I think he could end up being the number 1 target. Because remember last year, I mean, Chenault was just seeing a ton of targets. He wasn't playing much. Like, that's the kind of player I think Mingo can be, where they just get him a quick target, get some yak after that, target him downfield. So he has a ton of upside in this offense. But again, he could be the number 4 or 5 target for all we know. But in the wide receiver 70 range, and based on his talent, he's definitely worth taking a shot here.
Yeah, another one of those situations where it's like a lot of uncertainty. Take the unknown who could just, if he balls out, so I like him as well. Marshall's a guy I think I'm not really high on. I know he had a good stretch last year, but I just don't see him holding a consistent enough role for the entire year with the kind of the way this room is shaping up. Hurst is tight end 24. At first I'm thinking, Frank Reich has used committees at tight end a lot, but Hurst did get a 3-year, $22 million deal with $13 million guaranteed. So, I mean, they're paying him like a top tight end, like a, every down tight end. Any thoughts on him?
This is similar to Dalton Schultz, where I think he gets a downgrade going from the Bengals offense and Joe Burrow to the Panthers with a rookie quarterback in Bryce Young. However, there's a chance he could be the number 1 target in this offense too. So I think that's fairly unlikely. So I'm not racing to get him at tight end 24. He was my most rostered tight end in best ball last year because he was so cheap and on the Bengals. I think he's fairly priced here. But I much rather get Sam Laporta in this range. I think he just offers way too much upside. So I think Hurst might help Bryce Young, but I don't think it goes the other way around. I'm passing on Hurst if he's ever, going inside the top 24.
Yeah, it's not really much to get excited about, but I think if you're investing in this passing game, you want to do it with the rookies or one of these wideouts who are 55 is the highest the wideouts are going. And then we got the running game. We got Miles Sanders coming over. He got a pretty big contract. And they're saying like, hey, we're gonna let him play 3 downs here. So I kind of like Sanders. RB 19. I mean, he's always been efficient. I think the O-line is decent here. I think he's gonna get a chance to play a lot. And remember, Frank Reich, he's the guy who, really was just like all in on riding Jonathan Taylor. And the way they paid Miles Sanders, you don't really see teams paying running backs in this day and age. So I think there's a chance Reich might end up feeding Sanders more than we think, because we're kind of thinking back to him with that frustrating role in Philly last year. But they 4 years, 25 mil, 13 guaranteed. And they've already said we want to get him to the 50 catch range. Deuce Staley is the running backs coach here. He had a 50 catch or what did he come? Yeah, he had a 50 catch year under Deuce Staley as the running back coach with the Eagles in 2019. I think just the way this team sets up, the defense shouldn't be terrible, but it should be one of those offenses that they're probably going to have to be running back centric, just to start at least. So yeah, I'm in on Sanders here at RB19. What about you?
Yeah, he was tricky to project just like about a month ago because I wasn't sure on his receiving role. So it's been encouraging to hear that they want him to be a 3-down back. And like you said, he's flashed out in the past. It's not like he can't catch the ball. They just didn't use him that way. So he's one of the few backs that has true 3-down upside in this range. So he probably won't be as efficient going from the Eagles, who have a great offensive line. They score a ton of points to the Panthers. They still have a decent offensive line, like you said. So I could get behind him here, and that hinders on him catching 40 plus passes, which it sounds more likely. So the more we've been hearing about his receiving usage, the more I've been in on Sanders at RB20 here.
Yeah, like I just like that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And yeah, like I was saying earlier, like Bryce Young, he doesn't like to scramble as much as people think. Like he would be willing to check it down to Sanders, definitely more so than like a Jalen Hurts. But I think Sanders, like he should be close to a workhorse back if we're trusting the coach speak here.
Yeah, and I mean, just we've seen it with Reich though. Just in giving these backs a ton, and the money, like everything, kind of lines up to that to suggest that we've seen it with Reich. The money is there. There's kind of, it's not like they have like a alpha dog receiver, so he could get a decent amount of pass catching work. So yeah, I like Sanders here. The backup, the handcuff, probably Chuba Hubbard at this point. He's going to RB58. Don't hate it, especially if think Sanders is going to be a 3-down back. Hubbard might be a 3-down back if Sanders goes down. So I don't hate it. Any thoughts on Hubbard?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think at RB58, you're not expecting Hubbard to put up numbers as long as Sanders is healthy. I don't think we should. But if Sanders were to go down, I think he does have RB2, 3 type of upside. I know you like Blackshear, but I can't imagine eating into his role too much. So he doesn't have that much competition. That's key when looking at backs in this range. I think I would still go with Jerome Ford, Chase Brown, or Jalen Warren in this range, and then Hubbard would be just behind them. I think he's like the 4th best in these running backs going in like the late 50s.
Yeah, I do like Warren a lot. Brown still want to make sure he wins that number 2 job. But then Ford looks like he looks like he's in the driver's seat. So I do think Hubbard's interesting here. Okay. Who are your sleepers or undervalued guys for the Panthers to recap?
Jonathan Mingo, for sure. I think especially if he falls outside of the top 65, top 70, he just has the widest range of outcomes where he could be the number 1 target based on how they want to use him. He certainly has that ability. He's good with the ball in his hands. He can win downfield. So he has the higher ceiling. DJ Chark probably does have the higher ceiling, but I think Mingo has the best value at wide receiver 70 right now.
Yeah, I do like Chark. I think Chark, especially in best ball, I would say best ball, Chark, Mingo, just all formats, just that unknown coming into a passing game where the number 1 spot is wide open. And then Miles Sanders as well. I think, like you said, 3-down upside here, and also some of that kind of force feed Jonathan Taylor type upside as well. What about overvalued guys and busts?
Got to go with Hayden Hurst. Cashed in with him last year. He cashed in with his good season last year, but he's going to a much worse offense, to put it kindly. So I just don't like his upside here. I think his ADP is fair, but everybody else on the Panthers I think is undervalued. So you'd have to go with Hayden Hurst here for the bust.
Yeah, for me, it's Steven. I just think there's a lot of guys that could kind of like. I don't think even if he starts the year as a number 1, I don't think he'll last. And there are just enough red flags for me to to be pretty worried about him here in the mid 50s. Okay, Buccaneers. That's who we got to finish up with here. Bucs are expected to be in the cellar of this division now. Tom Brady no longer there. We also got Byron Leftwich, the OC. He's out. In comes Dave Canales, who was the Seattle Seahawks quarterback coach, credited with turning around Geno Smith. So what can he do with Baker Mayfield, who's going at QB 33? It's never a good sign when there's 32 teams in the league and your top quarterback is going at QB 33.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, this is shaping up to be a true, camp battle between Baker and Kyle Trask, apparently. But the one thing going for whoever starts is they still have two, I mean, future Hall of Fame level wide receivers, and Mike Evans certainly, and Chris Godwin. So there is some potential here. Should still be a pretty pass heavy offense. And I would bet on Baker. I would just lean Baker. I would say he's 28 years old, former first round pick. He definitely performed better with the Rams towards the end of last season, which I think helped mix his cases here. Whereas Trask is, an unproven second round pick from a couple years ago. So I'm leaning Baker here. And like I said, he has, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So it's worth some best ball stacks at least, when you get a guy outside of the top 32 where he might start all 17 games. So I think out of the two, I'm leaning Baker. I'm not going crazy with him there, but I think it makes sense to have some Baker and like Godwin Evans stacks right now.
Yeah, and let's talk about Godwin and Evans. So Godwin is going around wide receiver 27, Edmonds, wide receiver 31. So they're both going right around that, right around that top 30. Godwin is younger, age 27. Now he's a year removed from that ACL.
Yep.
But then Mike Evans, I mean, this dude never has put up fewer than 1,000 yards in the season. So is this the first time Evans does that? Because if not, he should be a bit of a value, even if there isn't like consistent touchdown production. What do you think?
Well, I mean, trends were meant to be broken, so there's a chance. Let me see what my projection is for him. So I have around 950. So I think, I put it at less than 50% chance he continues that streak with Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask under center. But I still like him. I think you can get all three receivers if we want to throw Russell Gage in there.
I don't.
Okay, well, you can get him at discount.
I don't think he's
the third.
Something's not right with him. He had that bad neck injury, remember?
The end of the,
and he hasn't practiced since. He's out of camp with the undisclosed. So it doesn't.
He's the third. He's the third in ADP. I'm not saying take Gage, but all three are way cheaper than they were last year, which makes sense because you're going from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. But like I said, this should still be a pass-heavy offense. I think, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were putting up numbers before Brady was there. Like, they're legit receivers no matter what. So I think we can consider them quarterback-proof. And like you mentioned, I think the big thing with Godwin is, last year he was eased in. He was coming off that ACL tear. So early in the season, I remember he was being drafted outside the top 30 last year, I think, just because we weren't sure if he's going to be healthy. This year, he should be closer to 100%. Like you said, he's younger than Evans. He's still in his prime. So I do like him at wide receiver 26. You had mentioned something about Coach Speak talking about them expanding his route tree, which would not be ideal. So if you have more on that, that would sway me off him a bit. But I'm assuming he'll be sort of that target hog slot receiver again this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, so they're talking about, Canales is talking about, Godwin still has some field stretching ability and he has the ability to play outside, which it sounds good, but that means he less, high percentage targets that he's been getting in slot. But again, I think something's off with Gage. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it just seems like looking at the injury and the undisclosed, just one of those things where I wouldn't be surprised if he just didn't end up even suiting this year. Yeah, I mean, again, we're a long way out. He could be fine. But either way, I don't think he factors in too much, but he could play the slot. Well, Godwin played outside. That could be kind of how they go about it if that's the lineup. So, but I'm kind of with you. I think at 27 for Godwin and 31 for Evans, I still think there's probably more upside than down. These guys are going to be running a ton of routes. If the team is bad, then they're going to have to throw. So yeah, I'm fine with these guys at this range. Like, I'm not like rushing to get them, but I don't think they're going to bust because the market has kind of factored in the down pretty appropriately. And then Kate Otton's 33, tight end 33. He's a 2022 fourth rounder. The ADOT wasn't great last year, under 6. Actually, the underlying metrics weren't great last year. 14% target per route. But like, he also, I don't think he has much competition. Cameron Braid is gone. They drafted this guy, Payne Durham, but that's a day 3 pick. O'Keefe is more of like a fullback, H-back, tight end, hybrid guys. So I don't know. What do you think of Otton here at 33 among tight ends?
I mean, he does seem a bit cheap as the likely week 1 starter
Yeah.
at tight end 33. And like you said, 5th rounder, Payne Durham could make some noise. It's just unlikely. And Otten was able to hold off Brait and even Kyle Rudolph, who, they're not great, but he was able to, warrant playing time. And he was running, over an 80% routes run rate, like 5 of the final 10 games or so. So, I mean, he's probably going to be a workhorse tight end on day 1. So, you can't say that about many tight ends outside of the top 30. So I think he makes a ton of sense there. Like you said, the underlying metrics weren't great. Like, I don't think he's a fantastic prospect, but just based on the volume alone, I mean, if you're in a league where you're taking tight ends in this range, I think he does make sense.
Yeah, I think he beats his ADP if he's healthy.
Yeah. Yep.
Going outside the top 32 as a starting tight end. So yeah. And then we got the backfield with Rachaad White, year 2 guy, 3rd rounder last year. Another guy not really promising underlying metrics, 58th of 60 qualifiers in yards after contact, according to PFF, at 2.3, 57th of 60 in elusiveness rating. We've heard some rumors about potentially adding Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, even some Dalvin Cook. I think that's a lot less likely. But there, Chase Edmonds and Sean Tucker, undrafted guy, are behind him. So there's not a ton behind him as of now. So what are you doing with White at RB 25?
Yeah, so I mean, he has the inside track to be the week 1 starter with Leonard Fournette gone, but he does have some competition with Chase Edmonds and Sean Tucker. White, I liked White heading into his rookie season. Talented 3rd round pick out of Arizona State, but he was more known for his pass catching ability. So I think he should have that role this year, obviously. But he did struggle as a runner, like you mentioned. He ranked 56th out of 58 in my expected yards per attempt model last year, which is not good. And they're losing Donovan Smith. Jack Mason's gone. They're still scrambling after Ali Marpet retired a couple seasons ago. They're moving Tristan Wirfs to the left side, so O-line could be shaky and ended up being more average this year. So that's going to hurt White's rushing upside. So while White has upside as a potential week 1 starter, he definitely feels frozen pondy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So well, they're probably still going to be pass heavy. He has competition for early downs and Sean Tucker potentially, and passing downs with Chase Edmonds, and that's not even factoring in, like you said, Zeke or Kareem Hunt going there. So I'm probably off of White at RB 25 right now.
Yeah, obviously a vote of confidence releasing Fournette, but until we see what else they're going to do in the backfield, if anything, it's tough. And then the fact that, I know the O-line was bad, but like you said, we're not really looking at like a massive step forward, especially in the run blocking department. Obviously, a younger quarterback, maybe you could mitigate some of the issues that Brady's notoriously struggled with, like the interior pressure, and he was he just had to get the ball out of his hands last year. He couldn't afford to get popped like that. But I'm not. It looked like earlier in the offseason, like, okay, White, Fournette's gone, take a step forward, but it's just not shaping up very well, I think, for White. And this might be the worst iteration of the Bucs team in a while. They won what was 8 games last year, 9 games. So now, they were 8-9 last year.
Jeez.
Won the division, but their win total most spots is around 6.5. So, and there's potential this team could be even worse than last year with an offensive line that really didn't get any better. I don't think the Bucs will be competitive, but I think it's more so due to their defense. I don't. It's there's just not enough there for me with White. I guess that's the way I'll put it. At 25. All right, let's 3, 2, 1. All right, let's wrap it up. Just to recap, undervalued guys, sleepers on the Bucs.
Got to go with Chase Edmonds. I don't like White at RB 25. Now, if they bring in a Zeke or Kareem Hunt, I wouldn't want Chase Edmonds here. But at RB 77, he does have some upside just because there's so much volatility, in this backfield. I don't think we talked about Sean Tucker, but he was expected to be a mid-round pick, went undrafted due to medical concern. He missed the June minicamp due to he's expected back by training camp, but I don't know what's going on with him. So he might be out of the picture I don't know. It just seems like in a situation like this, Edmonds at RB77 right now might as well take some flyers. So he's probably the biggest sleeper right now for me on the Bucs.
That's a good point on Edmonds. I wasn't even really on my radar just because of the kind of flux. But yeah, if he's that number 2, yeah, there's definitely some
He could be the
there.
number 1.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Rashad White struggles. Yeah.
Yeah. It could devolve into a committee real quick, and Edmonds could win that. For me, it's Cade Otton. I just think he's going outside the top 30 tight ends, and I expect him to start and play a full complement of snaps. So it's not sexy. He wasn't great last year, but I do think he beats his ADP. What about for overvalued guys or busts?
It's got to be Rashad White, just because he literally embodies what it means to be a frozen pond running back at RB25. So got to go with Rashad White.
Yeah, same for me. I think he's the guy that sticks out. The quarterbacks are what they are. We're not expecting much from them, and I think the receivers are discounted enough to where they're not. Yeah. I'm not really afraid of them busting. All right, that is going to wrap it up for our NFC South fantasy preview episode here on the Fantasy Flex. If you want to hear us talking AFC South, that episode has already dropped. We have our AFC and NFC East and North episodes out right here on this channel as well. Stay tuned next week. We will finish up with the AFC West and the NFC West. You can find Sean on Twitter at @_oddsmaker and me at Chris Raybon. And you can find us at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.